everyone. My name is Ranisha Nanjani from 5 BCom Honors B. And today we have with us an alumni, Carolyn Theresa Simon, who is a wellness consultant. Now, every individual has the ability to take risks in life. Some prefer to take it, and some prefer to take it easy. Carolyn here, a few years ago, decided to take that risk to discover who she really is. Carolyn, it is really great to have you here with us today. So Carolyn, if you don't mind, I would love to take a few minutes to introduce you and talk about all the accomplishments that you've achieved in life. So Carolyn is a 2015 graduate from the BCom program. During her college days, one of her many passions was food, so big that she even delivered a TEDx talk on how the world is united through food. She's also worked as a food and wellness writer and consultant with multiple companies in the past. Further, she's also worked at Deloitte as a business analyst and at KPMG as an HR professional. But she didn't feel like her time was being put to the best use, and the roles didn't align with her values and what she had to offer. She took a teacher training course in 2017 and shifted her focus to being a yoga instructor. She believes in practice what you teach, or teach from experience. Carolyn is on a mission to transform lives through the practice of yoga, meditation, healthy eating, and sustainable living. She's had the privilege of training under prolific Indian masters and hopes to spread knowledge about the ancient transformative practices of yoga. She is currently pursuing her master's in yoga and Buddhist studies and is an ERYT 500 yoga educator. As a proponent of yoga, from the source, she has worked with some of the best brands in the healthcare space, such as CultFit, for the Training Academy lead in yoga, and YogaFi for content lead. And currently, she's also working on curating a program for the Indian national teams with the Sports Authority of India, SAI, in association with Simply Sport Foundation. She currently works closely with a fitness tech startup that's looking to disrupt the fitness space with the world's first intelligent yoga mat. When she's not trying to decode this ever-changing world, you'll find her engrossed into a book, or 5. So through this interview, Carolyn wants to help and motivate her fellow Christites to take a risk, which involves taking up a profession which is completely different from what we learn in college and still excelling in life. Carolyn, would you like to add something here before we get into the questions?
I think you've covered most of it.
Great. Let's dive right into the questions then. So my first question would be the very basic one, which is despite having a well-paying job in Deloitte and KPMG, you still decided to shift to becoming a yoga instructor, which is great. I truly appreciate it. But what was your thought process behind all of this?
Thank you. So it was a very challenging shift for me because at that point, after having done finance, and that was like the dream job, getting into one of the big fours for anyone who has this background. And everyone around me said, wow, you've already got such an amazing job. So at first, when I knew, so after a few months, I gave it a few months. I said, okay, let me see how office is going to be. And after a few months, I just felt like you rightly said, my time wasn't being put to the best use. I loved the company. I loved my colleagues, but the work was just, it just didn't align. I felt like one of my main values is creativity. And I felt like the kind of work that I was putting in every day was very predictable. I knew what was going to happen the next day, or I knew exactly what I was going to be doing the next week. It was that level of, monotony to some extent. So that's what I didn't enjoy. And I didn't feel like for me it was the best fit, or it didn't align with what I wanted to do. So that's when I started to look outside, and everybody I spoke to, and for me, there was that concept of looking within wasn't there at that point in time. It was always about looking at what everyone else close to me said. And they all said, no, maybe you should give it some more time. It's a new company. You've moved to a different city. So I said, okay, let me just give it some more time. And then I spent some time also talking to my seniors and understanding what they do. So people who've been in the company for about 5 years. And still I felt like that's not what I wanted to be doing in 5 years. So one day I just decided to quit, and and I think I told you this story as well.
Yes,
I just went
definitely.
online and there was an option that said exit, and I just clicked on that because I knew for sure that this, I tried for a long time. I spoke to a couple of people, my mind, when I sat at work, my mind was always outside, thinking of what else I could be doing. So I took that shift. I gave myself some time though. I said, I'm going to give myself 1 year. If I feel like I can't do what I really want to do, then maybe I'll look at getting back to this. So there was always, I was privileged at that point in time that I had an option B, because after college, I had offers from 3 of the Big 4. So I'd got into Deloitte, EY, and I was working with KPMG as a campus ambassador. So they'd also given me an offer. So I knew I had something to get back to. And if not anything, I had done a baking course in college. So I knew I could maybe start as a home baker and make something out of it. So I made that move. I moved to, initially when I moved out of Deloitte, I knew that that was not the role that I wanted to do, but I still had a sort of like an HR role in mind because I was so involved in the HR fest here in college. So I decided to explore something in that space. So I worked for a bit in learning and development at KPMG, where I used to work on handling the induction programs, handling learning programs for managers and at all different levels, which was also a very interesting role. But then also I felt like I loved the role in terms of the learning and what I was doing, but something was still missing. So I went out, and that's when I went to the ashram. I did my first teacher training program. And once I did that, I knew that this is exactly what I want to do for the rest of my life. And that's how my yoga journey began. And my time in the ashram also changed me a lot as an individual. And I knew I wanted to bring that change in some sense to more people around me.
That's lovely, actually. That's really interesting about the ashram life. We'll definitely touch base on that a little further into the interview. Since you took such a big step, can you talk about the challenges that you faced? And so we got to know that your mind wasn't, your mind was always elsewhere when you were in these companies, which makes complete sense. But you must have faced quite a lot of challenges when just while making this decision. So could you talk about at least one or two challenges that you faced?
Sure, sure. So I think for me, after moving out, the first challenge was because I had to prove to my parents that whatever I was doing was going to work. They were the ones who were very confused because I was doing really well academically. Also, I did well. I got into these companies, but somewhere they were very confused. So for me, what worked for me then is just to believe in myself and believe in what I was going to do. So I came back after the teacher training program, and I remember sitting down and writing down all the studios in Bangalore, and I called them. The same day I sat and called them and said, do you have an opening for a yoga teacher, or is there something that... So most of them didn't have an opening then because it was a very niche space. It wasn't as big as it is now. So yeah, I wrote to all of them. I called many of them. And then I started exploring studios outside Bangalore. I said if nothing was working here, I would move to a different city and stuff.
Okay.
So that's how it started. And then I got one substitute class, which was somewhere about 13 kilometers away. And I had to wake up at 5 in the morning because generally most of these classes happen early in the morning. So I decided to take it up because I knew that this is it. And I was so excited to get that first substitute class. It's only for a few days. They weren't paying much, but I decided to just give it a go. And I did my first class. Luckily, the students at that studio really enjoyed my class and they said, we want more of these sessions.
Oh, great.
So they added one session a week. That was one class that I had. And that was it that I was doing. I was just learning. There's a lot to learn in yoga. There's a lot of philosophy, anatomy that helped me a lot with my practice. And I was doing this. And one of my other interest areas was food.
Yes.
So I really loved writing about food. So I approached a couple of startups and I got into one startup here where I used to write their menu and just put out content for them on a regular basis. It was called 48 East.
Okay.
And then they got acquired by Swiggy. So
Great. Wow.
so it was a good time. In the mornings I would teach, and then after that, word spread. So most of the studio owners knew each other. I got work at different studios. I started teaching across Bangalore. So I spent most of my time traveling, and in the afternoons when I didn't have classes, I was just writing about food. So I was living the life. For me, actually, that was my best phase. And after that, I've just been growing and learning.
That's really nice. I mean, just following your passion through life. I think that's like the best way to live life, honestly. So you are into yoga, and your one of your main passions was food. So you're like in a completely different field than anybody would actually imagine. So whatever you learned in college 3 or 3 years, do you use that till date, or is it just gone from?
Definitely. I think a lot of things that, because there's a lot of conditioning that also happens in college, and there's so much that we pick up that we're not really conscious of, especially at this phase in our lives. And I feel like I've learned so much from college. Some of it I don't realize, but then I look back, and I do some sessions with a coach where we look back and understand where this behavior or this pattern has come from. And a lot of them have really helped me in the process. And one of them, I think you also mentioned about risk taking.
Yes.
And that's something that I've learned from college for sure. Today, when I came in, also, I realized that because when I walked into college every day, I would look at the board and there was some fest or the other happening. And I would try and go for everything. So the first time I joined, this was in first year, I'd gone for a Bharatnatyam. They were selecting some Bharatanatyam dancers for the college team.
Okay.
And I just decided to go. I'd learned when I was very young, and I'm learning now, but I hadn't really, that time I was completely out of practice. But, and I've done so many other things after that. I've gone for MUNs, a lot of things that I was completely outside my comfort zone in college. But for me, that was a time to explore and network. I met a lot of people from all different colleges while I was going for these fests. And I learned a lot from them as well in the process. But I think risk taking and being vulnerable, not thinking about what someone else is going to say or think, that's something I learned from college for sure.
Nice. So when it comes to college, definitely there's a lot of risk taking, and you do tend to step out of your comfort zone. But now, for example, you were in the BCom program, so you've learned finance, you've learned audit, you've learned tax. So these subjects, like, does it, or even marketing, for example, like, does it play in your day-to-day role, or is it something that's very rare now that you use the concept for?
Yeah, yes, it does play a big role. So I did my taxes last year with my dad, and I still remember everything that we learned in college, and we were trying to see how we can, move it around, put things in PF and see how we could reduce or get some more exemption in the taxes. And it helped a lot, everything that we've learned. And even for all the consulting projects that I do all my invoicing, I send it to them, I maintain all my accounts. So everything, all of that is from college. And another thing is leadership, because of all the fests that we've done. I feel like I've imbibed a lot of skills that help me associate with people, because my current job also requires me to work with a lot of different kind of people. And that exposure I also got in college, where I was working with so many different people. So yeah, a lot of different elements that I use.
Yeah.
in
You
my
can't
daily
you don't really think about this aspect until you actually do it.
Exactly.
So continuing back from the first question that I'd asked you, so you already mentioned the challenges that you faced, and all of these challenges, it kind of changed you for the better. And so, in what ways have you changed, and like, what were your personal outcomes? So, like, you mentioned the ashram, for example. So, was that something that was life changing, or could you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, the ashram was a very big phase in my life for sure. It changed my outlook of life, because when I came out of college, I started meeting a lot of people, especially because I was in the food space, so attending a lot of events. And I met people in power. They were a lot of movie stars, people who were part of the press. And then I also met people who had a lot of money. So generally in college, that would be the aim, either to be in a very powerful position or to have a lot of resources or be wealthy. But for me, I realized when I moved to the ashram, and I would always, that was my goal, saying, maybe one day I will be like this person, or maybe one day I will have so much money as this person, or maybe one day I'll be as smart as this person. It could be anything, but that was my surrounding, at least at that point in time. But when I went to the ashram, I met people who were living the simple life. They had nothing. There was nobody more powerful than anyone else. We were just all living together, and everybody had to do some work or the other. We call it karma yoga. So everybody had a task to do in the ashram. And when I saw them, it was just a whole different life. They were doing such simple tasks, but they were so joyful. It was not, and all the time. Here you see people, if something happens, they get happy. If they get a promotion, they're happy for some time. And then after that, they're looking for the next promotion or
true.
they want more.
Yeah.
But there I saw that people were genuinely very joyful, and it was not dependent on something external. It was something they were experiencing because of the practice. So that's what changed me. And I feel like I was also very attached to a lot of things from the outside. Like, we all are, at least at that age, we had to wear a certain kind of clothes or have certain things with
Definitely.
us.
Yeah, for sure.
So I let go of a lot of that
Okay.
in the ashram, because I realized we don't need so much, as much as we think we need. And
True.
it was more a process of letting go, and also tuning out, because there's so much happening around. And at the ashram, I realized how much I was being influenced by people around me and everything that was happening around me. So yeah, it was really a process of discovery that's changed me.
So it's something that came from the internal, basically. So now you were basically cut off from everything external, and you have to kind of just try to find your inner power at that kind of point.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's dive into your job now. So as you mentioned, wellness consultant and yoga instructor. So what does your daily routine look like, and what do you think would be the best part of your job?
I think the best part of any job is not feeling like you it's work at all. So that's how it feels to me. I don't feel like I work. It's become a part of me now. In the morning I wake up, I do my practice. And then after that, I generally teach classes in two formats. I do more of recorded content now because it reaches more people. So
True.
sometimes I work with some of the big companies in India where I do recorded content for them, or I teach classes. And now, after the whole lockdown, everybody is so comfortable doing classes online.
Definitely.
So I have students from across the world who come in and join my sessions. So I do that in the morning. And during the day, I work as a consultant with AI based, so it's a fit tech company where we're trying to train a yoga mat to track postures
Wow.
and
That's
help
interesting.
more people. So yeah, in the morning I train humans, in the afternoon I train the yoga mat, and in the evening I'm back to working on classes and doing
Okay.
some content. I do some meditation sessions, and there's a lot of learning that happens in the process. There's Even after teaching for 7 years, I still feel like I have so much to learn. So
Yeah.
I spend some time learning.
I agree. That is honestly the best part of your job when you don't feel like you're just working. It's just a part of you now. We kind of got now, I guess, like the thoughts on your yoga, like on yoga. But what would you like to tell our viewers about yoga? And like, have you done any life changing courses or something that like relating to yoga, or just an insight about yoga, so that maybe we can also start.
Sure, you should. I would recommend everybody to start in some form or the other. So generally, I think what is portrayed outside are all these flexible postures and people getting into them, but that's not real yoga, at least the practice. So for me, yoga is a way of life. It's
Okay.
not only a physical practice that we do on the mat, but there's so much to it, and there's so much we can take from the practice to our everyday lives, be it patience. I think the practice has taught me a lot about patience, and that's something I take with me everywhere. I definitely feel like I've become a lot more patient now. And also, it's like the superpower in some
That's a good
sense.
way to
I
put
feel
it.
like with this practice and after doing my sadhana, so sadhana is just a daily practice that we do every day.
Okay.
I feel like I'm equipped to handle anything that comes my way. That's the kind of superpower that I feel I'm equipped with after the
Wow.
practice and once yoga came to my life. So yeah, at least spending some time every day, I would recommend people to just focus on their breathing, spend a little time just in meditation, because like I said earlier, there's so many distractions, and now it's just increasing. I hear that now drones are going to be flying all over for delivery as well. Another distraction. So
True.
we are still so distracted. It's really time that we tune in and focus a little more on ourselves. So that I feel like once we're able to do that, then we can portray our true self to people outside. Unless we do that process, we are just trying to become what someone else thinks we are rather than being who we truly are.
So, do you have anything or any type of specific meditation or yoga that you would recommend, especially as college kids, to do? Maybe, I mean, you have done it for a lifetime, and even in the ashram, it was more of a day-to-day thing. So, at least, 15 minutes in the morning or 20 minutes in the morning, could you recommend some things to like your fellow Christians as per like what we should do?
Definitely. I wish I could come and do a session maybe to explain it
We'd
better.
love that, actually.
But I think to start off, just loosening the body, because we tend to hold a lot of tension in different parts of the body, especially the neck and the shoulders. So, spending some time just doing simple movements that will help release the tension. It could just be rotations. And once that's done, one very powerful practice is the breath. Just to tune into the power of the breath, because our breath is one thing that's with us throughout. Anytime we feel like, that's why I said I feel like I'm equipped with this. It's like a superpower. I
Right.
can handle anything. So that's because many a times when I feel like I'm angry, or I'm in a situation where I'm going to react and not take my time, I just focus on my breathing for some time and just focus on every breath. So focusing on every inhale and exhale. And that helps a lot. We call it anapana. So when we focus completely till the nostrils, just focusing on the breathing, that helps to really calm down the whole body. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the more of the relax and digest response of the body. It just helps us respond to any situation better. So this is just focusing on the breath or breath awareness and these joint movements. These are two simple practices that anyone can do, and it just takes about 10 minutes. You can slowly build up to 20 minutes, and just maintaining that 20-minute practice every day will really make a difference.
Noted. All right. So, do you have like a personal motto or like a personal quote that you usually go about with, or something that you just strongly believe in that you would like us to know?
My personal motto is just to believe in myself. So I would tell everyone, just believe in yourself, because that's how I started as well. When I initially moved to this different job, if I didn't believe in myself, or if I didn't show people that I did, nobody else would encourage me or support me in the process. Even students, I had to show them that, I'm really good at this and I know what I'm doing. Even my parents, to be
Right.
able to do something completely different. So anything that you do, I would say start with that, and sometimes that might take a little longer. For me, it did take, and a lot of times I still feel like I'm finding myself in some areas, but just spending some time in stillness, and which will eventually lead to you believing in yourself. I think these are two things that I live by.
Great. So, with this saying, we come to the end of the interview, and it was a pleasure to have you here with us, Carolyn. Honestly, thank you so much for taking out your time out of your entire busy schedule, to address your Christites.
It's always great to come back to college, and it's so nostalgic just walking down, coming to
Yeah, I
this.
saw your reactions when you were walking down. But honestly, good luck for your future, and
Thank you.
I think I think now we probably all understand that, just if we're stressed, or just take out some time in the day or in the morning just to cool ourselves down, be patient, and take things slowly, one step at a time. And I think we would also go a long way if we follow Carolyn's advice, because honestly it was really great. And so, do you have any message that you would like to share to our viewers before you wrap up? Because I'm pretty sure by now they're definitely inspired by you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me, Ronisha, and the whole team from the Commerce Department. In terms of a message, I would just say just explore and have fun. Uh, just don't stress about it. There's so much to do and so little time. So
True.
just spend this time exploring, living your best life. That's all I have to
So,
say.
great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.